Bust him, Papa. Are you crazy? He's my best customer.
And speaking of past that, I guess I'll talk about some of the other Ghostbusters adjacent things that happened in between Ghostbusters 2 and Ghostbusters Afterlife. Actually, I'll go back before the Ghostbusters. There was a 1975 show called The Ghostbusters. 3 words, not just one. The Ghostbusters. It was from 1975, and I believe it was produced by Filmation. If not, it was Hanna-Barbera, but I'm pretty sure it was Filmation. And I had this show on VHS tape as a kid, and it came in huge boxes. And it was basically a live-action Scooby-Doo. But instead of a dog and a group of teens, it was 2 old guys. One was like a stereotypical Italian. One was just an old man that was grumpy, and the other was a gorilla. And I actually found out recently the gorilla was a boy. My entire childhood, I thought the gorilla was a girl. And I very much liked that show as a kid. I rewatched it recently. Well, I rewatched the first episode, and it doesn't really hold up, but I think for children's television, especially in the 70s, I think it was a good time. I really liked it. It had a sequel, actually, I think it was just called The Ghostbusters. And the sequel show is a cartoon, and I think it came out the same year as the real Ghostbusters. But it's such a wacky concept. I think it's a robot ghost from the future that is sending the descendants of the original 75 Ghostbusters and through like a time travel adventure where they have to. It's such a bizarre concept. It's almost deserving of taking a look because it is so weird. But yeah, that came out at the same time as the real Ghostbusters, which is such a passive-aggressive title. And they have an explanation in the show why it's called The Real Ghostbusters. And it's because the Bill Murray movie, in the context of The Real Ghostbusters, is a movie based on them. And I think there's an episode where the real Ghostbusters sees the Ghostbusters movie, and they're like, oh, this guy looks nothing like me, because they changed up their design so they could be more recognizable as a cartoon. And I have fond memories of watching that show. I didn't watch it as it aired because I was not born in that time, but I did catch a lot of reruns as a kid. And it was always really exciting to see, like, oh, it's the real Ghostbusters, and I would like stop what I was doing to watch it because it was so rare it was on. And I think that's honestly why Ghostbusters 2 is so like the way it is, because like Ghostbusters 2 randomly has Slimer in it, and it doesn't make sense for Slimer to be in that movie, but he's in it because he was in the real Ghostbusters. And it's funny too because the real Ghostbusters actually references Ghostbusters 2. So, like, in universe, they acknowledge the things that happen in the movies. It's really weird. But the one I did watch as it aired was Extreme Ghostbusters. And that one was super interesting to see as it aired because I remember not liking things about it. I did not like that it was only Egon returning and it was like all these kids. As a kid, I hated things that were like, hello, fellow children, and that to me, that show was to me the Hello, Fellow Children show. And I also rewatched that very recently. Not the whole thing, of course. I do not have that kind of time, but I saw like a handful of episodes, and it's not as bad as I remember. Actually, I think it's pretty decent. It's awfully dark, which I wasn't expecting. The characters are simply okay. I think the worst thing about it is the theme song. They did the Ghostbusters theme song, but it was like a grunge version, and it's horrendous. It's absolutely awful. It's the worst thing about the show. But looking back, I think it's a fun anomaly. I didn't like regret watching it. But I tell you what I do regret watching is the 2016 Ghostbusters remake. And I say I regret watching it, but I only made it like maybe 30, 40 minutes into the movie. I can actually tell you exactly where I stopped watching the Ghostbusters remake. Chris Hemsworth is... I can't remember where it is, actually. I just remember he says he has a cat named Dog, or a dog named Cat, and I about near vomited in my mouth. It's not like... every joke in it is so unfunny. It is like every theater kid's like who thinks they're like super funny, but as a movie. It's the yes and it's yes and to the worst degree. It's so like jokes can't just be delivered. Like the original Ghostbusters, the humor was very subtle and very sly, like I wouldn't even say it was tongue in cheek. It was just very dry, very cynical movie. And this one was just like just too much ad lib. The jokes just kept going on and on and on. And I was like, oh, I just want to be like, please stop. This joke is not funny, and you just are stretching it out. And my tolerance ended with my cat's name is Dog or my dog's name is Cat. Whatever. It wasn't funny. It's not worth remembering. But you know what? You know what? You know what? I never thought while watching the original Ghostbusters. I was like, you know what this movie needs? More queef jokes. I never thought that. And when that's all it has to offer is like poop and fart jokes and like horrible improv. It's like I can't see myself ever giving that movie another chance. It just ugh. And it's funny too because a lot of the actors in that movie, a lot of the women in that movie are really really funny outside of that movie. So I think it's purely the editors or the director's fault why that movie is so terrible. But again, I never finished it.